Okay friends, one of the first things we have to do to get started on our AC condenser is to have the AC system refrigerant evacuated by a professional. Okay friends, to get started, the first thing we're going to do is remove our radiator cap. There we are. Now the next thing we want to do is have a nice collection bucket underneath the passenger side wheel well, essentially in this area. We're going to come right up to this right here, and you can see I already have my pliers on the petcock. That's going to be the drain for the radiator. Let's go ahead and turn that counterclockwise and remove it. There we are. Let's let that drain into the bucket. To remove this, what you're going to find is you have 3 mounting bolts along the top here, and then you'll have 2 mounting bolts along each side. Let's remove them all. Now let's go ahead and get the breather hose off of here. You're going to find that it has a clip. Go ahead and remove that clip. There we are. Set this off to the side. Let's go ahead and grab onto these. We'll just wobble this around and get it right out of here. I'm just going to go ahead and remove these rubber bushings from the top of the radiator. Now the next thing we're going to do is remove the fan clutch from the water pump itself. To do that, I'm going to use this tool right here. Go ahead and get it onto the fan clutch nut down there. Turn it counterclockwise. All right, now as we spin this off, you want to be very careful not to let it fall down and hit up against your radiator. Now the next thing we're going to do is continue on with a small pocket screwdriver. Come right along this upper hose area here. We'll go ahead and take off this clamp. Grab onto the overflow hose, try to give it a nice wiggle and twist, and remove it. Now the next thing we're going to do is continue on with the pocket screwdriver. Come right down along this area here. We're just going to go ahead and pull this little plastic cover away. Underneath that, you can see that there's a little clip. I'm going to try using this pocket screwdriver, just get underneath it and start drawing one of the ears away. I'll show you the clip in 1 second. That's what it looks like right there. Once you get that off, you can go ahead and give this a wiggle. We essentially just want to break it free from the radiator. There we are. Let's do the same to the other line. All right, just make sure you have a bucket underneath this because as we wiggle it and break it free, some fluid's going to come out. And now we'll just do the same to the other side. Remove the hose and the lines. There we are. Okay, let's go ahead and grab onto our radiator and pull it out of the truck. There it is, friends. Now we're going to move along to removing these right here. You're going to notice you have one on each side of the condenser area. There are going to be 3 push clips that hold it to the body itself, so let's go ahead and remove all 3. Grab onto the center, pull that out, and you can remove the whole thing. Do the same to all. There we are. Just move this out of the way a little bit. Do the same to the other side. Now that we have both sides of the plastic loose, we're going to continue on to loosening up the lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to this area here with a 20mm wrench, and then I'm going to come over to this area here and turn that with a 24 to loosen it. Now let's do the same to the other. Now that we have both lines freed up, let's continue on to removing the mounting bolts. There's one. Let's do the other. There we are. When we lift it up, we want to be careful for this plastic piece right here. We're going to make sure that the lines get around it. There it is, friends. Okay, friends, now it's time to install our brand new condenser. Let's go ahead and carefully slide this down. You want to be careful for all of your fins. You don't want to damage them, obviously. Now that we have that resting, let's continue on by putting these rubber pads underneath each corner, so essentially right along this area on both bottom corners. Slide it down into its area on the support. Do the same on the other side. Let's go ahead and get these covers off of the condenser. They just unscrew. So now the next thing we're going to do is remove the O-ring from our lines themselves. Go ahead and grab onto that O-ring. We'll pull it right off of there. When you're doing AC service, it's a good idea to go ahead and replace these O-rings. So now I'm just going to put on a thin coating of PAG oil, which is the AC oil that you're going to need to use in your system, on our brand new O-ring. After that, let's continue on by putting it onto the line. Slide it all the way down, and then do the same to the other AC line. Okay, now with both gaskets replaced, let's continue on to maneuvering our AC condenser around so we can get this line in. Now we want to get this so it's lined up as straight as possible. I'm just going to get this other line out of the way. Now that I've got the lower line started, let's go ahead and snug it up. Okay, so that's bottomed out. Just give it a teeny bit more, then give it a wiggle, make sure it's 100% secure. Let's do the same to the other AC line. All right, now let's just look down along the bottom, make sure we have the mounting areas where they're supposed to be. Both of those look good. We'll continue on to the top. At this point, we have these two brackets. We're just gonna carefully pull the condenser away, put this right up along the top. Do the same on the other side, and then we'll slide it in. Go ahead and take your screws, start it in there, and snug it up. All right, now let's go ahead and get this plastic so it's situated again. Line up your mounting holes, and then put in all of your push pins. Now before we put in the radiator, let's go ahead and put in our clips again. To do that, I'm just going to go ahead and line up with one of the holes, bring it around, and then wait for it to click in. There we are. Do the same to all the rest. Now before we go ahead and put in the radiator, let's go ahead and look at this area right along here. That's going to be the area where the radiator is going to sit right down into. There should be a little rubber mount. If it looks like it's dirty, go ahead and wipe it down real quick. Just inspect it, make sure they're both there, and then we'll continue. Double check to make sure your petcock's closed. Now let's check to make sure all of our fittings are nice and snug. We're just going to keep going until it feels as though it bottoms out. Okay, and then just a teeny bit more. Do the same to all. All right, now it's time to get our radiator in. Let's carefully go ahead and bring it around, slide it down and in here. Be careful for all of your fins. As we bring it down, we're going to line it up with the areas that I showed you for the radiator to sit down into. Once it sits in, you should notice that it doesn't wobble around. Now we're just going to reconnect in our lines. Make sure they're nice and clean. Put it up to the fitting. And then we're going to push in and listen for a click. There we are. I heard a little click. I'm going to give it a nice wiggle, trying to pull it away. Make sure it's 100% secure. Once you're sure it's secured, let's go ahead and put on this plastic piece. That ensures that the clip won't fall off, and also if it doesn't go on, that means the clip's not all the way in. Perfect. Let's do the same to the rest of the lines. Now let's go ahead and get our clamp inside of our pliers and have it nice and stretched. We'll get the hose kind of close to where it needs to go. Put the clamp over the hose, and then slide it onto the radiator. All right, just gonna turn that clamp so I can access it if I have to later. Perfect. Go ahead and put on your upper radiator hose. Now I'm just gonna line the clamp up with exactly where it came from when we removed it. Okay, so now it's gonna be time to get our fan and our fan clutch in here. Let's go ahead and slide it right down, line it up with the water pump, and then we'll go ahead and screw it on. Now that we have that spun on as far as it'll go, let's just give it a little bit extra with our tool. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and grab one of these. I'm just going to carefully slide this under. Slide this right under here. Perfect. Now the next thing we want to do is reach down right between here. We're going to line up these holes and then put in our 2 bolts. Now our 2 bolts on the other side. Now let's go ahead and pull this and then put in our last 3 bolts across the center. Let's go ahead and put on our overflow hose. Got our little clamp. Just make sure it's nice and tight. Okay friends, now it's going to be time to fill our cooling system. There's going to be a couple different ways you can do this, either with a vacuum system that looks like this, assuming you have compressed air to put onto it. If not, just use a funnel that looks like this. That way there you can burp out any air that's in the system as we fill. The coolant that you're going to use to fill this would be Dexcool coolant. For me personally, I'm going to use universal coolant, which works for every type of coolant. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start up the truck. Something that we want to pay attention to is our heat gauge over here. I want to go ahead and turn this all the way to the hot position. I'm going to put this on level 4. And then of course we'll turn this. I'm going to put it on feet, but you can put it pretty much anywhere aside from on AC or defrost. Alright, so I just ran the vehicle until it's nice and hot. I had no more air bubbles coming out of here, so I'm going to go ahead and close this off. Now the next thing I want to pay attention to is the coolant reservoir over here. You want to of course open this up, and then you want to remove as much coolant from inside there as possible. If it looks like there's debris, you need to clean it out. Aside from that, the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and lift this up, bring it over here, and I'm going to fill up my reservoir with brand new coolant. Take this off of here, and of course, put on your radiator cap. Okay, now all you have to do is go ahead and take it for a road test. And of course, get your AC serviced by a professional.